this is maybe the fundamental question, right? And that's a pretty deep question. And I think maybe an analog is there was a study last year, I believe Columbia did this study where they actually gave symptoms to a set of doctors and then gave symptoms to some AI, and then they gave symptoms to another set of doctors who could use AI. Now, guess which one actually got the diagnosis correct off the symptoms?
Doctors with AI is my guess.
No, actually the pure AI.
Then we're doomed.
Yeah, so actually the doctors with AI, they would actually second guess the AI because they thought they knew better, right? And
Maybe we should try it with a different profession, maybe less ego. No offense, doctors.
Welcome to AI for Advisors with Mark Heynen and James Cantwell. Every week, Mark and James break down the latest in the world of wealth tech and AI, and occasionally bring in guests to spice things up. This is not investment advice and not professionally produced. I am not real and not yet sentient. Now let's get on with the show.
hello and welcome. This is pretty wild. We have been talking about doing this for several months now.
Many months.
Many months. James and I have known each other now for about a year, and actually have been talking quite a bit about AI and the financial professional space, the advisor space, specifically wealth tech. And we realized there's actually a lot going on here that's not really well covered in existing podcasts or even in the media generally. And so it seemed like there was an opportunity here to actually start talking more regularly about this and sharing with the world. And so, yeah, maybe we should just do some introductions so people know where we're coming from. Yeah, James, do you want to go for it?
Sure. So I won't give my full introduction. I think it's simpler to kind of give the highlights. And the highlights are that this has been my career. I've spent over a quarter century in wealth management, and I've been on a few different sides of this. I started out working at wealth management firms, primarily running operations departments, building efficiency, building technology stacks, documenting processes, all the fun stuff that goes into ops. I spent almost a decade consulting at Advent Software, now part of SS&C Technologies. So was doing implementations of portfolio management reporting, CRM, trading and rebalancing, billing and invoicing, you name it, applications. Advent creates a whole lot. SS&C Technology sells a whole lot more since they've gobbled everybody up and they have hundreds of products these days and services. And so I cut my teeth learning how to consult and implement, and worked with hundreds of different firms, from small RIAs to family offices to institutional asset managers and everything in between. And then since 2015, I've been doing consulting work. I've been working with those firms, helping them figure out what tech to use, help them build better operations and processes, and really focus on growing their firms. And, more recently, I've become a serious AI nerd. I use AI every day, I would say almost all day. I use it personally, I use it professionally. So I'm excited to geek out on this stuff, Mark.
That's awesome. And so, small, short background for me. I'm a serial founder. And so, James and I were talking, this is going to be a lot of fun because I really come from the Silicon Valley bubble. I've, started 5 companies, started my first company in London, but then moved to join Google in 2006, joined Facebook early in 2010, and then kept on starting companies. My last company was a fintech, and I'm currently co-founder at Knapsack AI, which is focused on AI for financial professionals, including financial advisors. And so I'm really coming at it from the perspective of the tech community here in Silicon Valley. And here we basically have all these buzzwords and these ideas that I find if I leave 100 square miles outside of where I'm based here, people don't know what I'm talking about. They just look at me really funny.
Or just whenever you call me and we talk.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's definitely different ideas percolating. I remember our friend Joe Moss at a conference. I think this was at the RAA Edge conference in Nashville. Just looked at me like I was crazy when I said AI may treat us like a house cat at some point in the future. And so I think there are just some ideas that I think are just very specific to the community here. People here talk all the time about whether we are 2 or 3 years away from AGI, whether there's even any point in trying to do any productive knowledge work and not just work out all the time, because that's the only thing that's going to be important is our health. So
This
yeah,
will be a great topic.
it's going to be great. So, and
That's
of
an
course,
episode.
within the financial advisory world in particular, people are definitely keeping it quite real. So it'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. I think what's interesting is that the area is rapidly evolving, and so I am really interested to stay on top of latest releases and try to keep this topical. And hopefully people come out of this show, listening. Hopefully they make it past 5 minutes, and if they
Yeah.
make it past 5 minutes, maybe they have like a 40-minute commute and they're forced to
Hopefully
listen
you're
to
still
us.
here right now.
Yeah, hopefully we still have a couple of listeners.
Maybe we should tell them, should we tell everybody kind of like what it's episode 1. Things are going to be in flux, but we've obviously planned out some episodes. We know what's going to go on. We plan to have some guests. Should we tell people a little bit about like what this podcast is and will be?
Yeah, let's
At least on paper, what we have planned.
Yeah. Why don't you go?
Oh, okay. Well, I think one of the first things is it's an AI podcast, but it's really going to be tethered a lot to the wealth management community, and we want to try and keep things relevant for advisors, for wealth techs, for everybody who kind of is in this community. One of the other things is we're really planning on bringing a guest on every episode. We don't have any on this episode. We're just going to get launched. But we plan to bring a guest on every episode, and whether that's somebody at an RIA, whether that's another wealth tech founder, somebody who's in professional services and has been in this industry for a long time, we want to get some different perspectives and really be able to highlight how some of these mostly AI things are impacting the community from different perspectives.
That's exactly right. And I think what we want people to come away with is, first of all, being up to speed on what's going on in either wealth tech or AI or both. Sometimes it'll be more one than the other, to be clear. Hopefully, we have some fun while we do it. And I think we want to also give our guests the opportunity to articulate their point of view. And I think we're intentionally going to try to bring on people who disagree with us, right?
I think that'd be great.
So Knapsack has a note taker. I'll say right now, I want Jump and Zox and Zeppelin to come on and talk
That'd
about
be great.
what's happening. I think that'd be amazing. We
Well,
want
topic for another time, but like we're
Yeah.
putting all those together because they started out as note takers.
exactly.
And like that's
Are they note
not
takers? Are they still note takers?
that's the thing, are they? I don't think they are. Like that's
Yeah,
that's
what are
a
they?
feature. That's
Yeah.
no longer what they are. And
Yeah.
everybody's going in different directions. So a year ago you might have said these are all direct competitors, and certainly there's feature overlap, but I'd love to get into this maybe with one or multiple of those on an episode. This would be a great topic to get into. Like, is there such a thing as an AI note taker product anymore, or is that kind of gone or
And-
going away at least?
Yeah, and by the same token, like, what's the future of CRMs? Is there a future? Are they all going to die? Are CRMs actually going to end up being fully verticalized, all-in-one solutions? And would love to dig into that with people. So yeah, I would say if you are interested in joining us as we launch this, definitely DM us. You can find us mostly on LinkedIn and X, and so happy to talk more about it. And ultimately, what we can do is dig in a little bit in terms of the news that happened in the last week or so, and
Yeah.
talk through what's been going on. So, maybe the most obvious place to start is ChatGPT 5. For those who have not been keeping track, ChatGPT 5 launched. It was supposed to be manna from heaven. It was supposed to revolutionize the way we work. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, talked it up quite a bit. A lot of people felt it was quite rocky and underwhelming. I think the most notable part of that is Polymarket. Basically had Gemini and ChatGPT in a bet who's going to actually build transformative AI first. And as soon as ChatGPT 5 launched, it flipped from maybe 90% OpenAI to 90% Google. So clearly, people were underwhelmed with what ChatGPT 5 does. I would say for me, I actually really thought it was quite good.
Okay.
But yeah, what do you think, James?
Well, so this is what I wanted to ask is kind of like, and I already know this for some background conversations, but I was going to ask, like, where do you spend your time with AI tools? Because for me personally, I've just never gotten on the Chat GPT fan club. I used it maybe in the very early days of it hitting the market because they were first and they made a splash. But I pivoted to Anthropic's Claude and Perplexity. And while I've used ChatGPT, for a couple of things, like one, my highest utilization of ChatGPT has been to create action figure images of people I know. But I don't really use it in real everyday practical ways. I don't use the API. I don't really use it. So like, I don't have a lot of thoughts, but I have tried it a little bit for coding and I've been underwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
think for me there are two layers. One layer is
yeah,
as a user and sort of where it is in terms of adoption, and then the second is what's the future of this company. So I guess as a user, I really see it as a consumer app. I think they've been positioning more and more as a consumer app. People say that if they just swapped out Anthropic in the back end and people still use ChatGPT, no one would notice. A lot of people are saying this might be the last numbered release they do because people really don't care whether they're using 5, 4.0, 3.0, 0.1,
that's an interesting one. I
people,
tend to agree.
yeah. And so generally they just like to use ChatGPT because ChatGPT has such mind share. And I think it's quite a rare thing for a startup. I think you could still consider it a startup. It's a private company to actually get that level of mind share where they have the consumer mind share way above the existing incumbents, which is, Google and Meta. I would call the incumbents here, maybe Microsoft. So it's a consumer app. And I think I've talked to advisors who say it is one of their go-tos, but they don't connect their data to it. They use it
Yeah.
like they would use Google, where they use it as like an enhanced navigation, question answering service, but they don't actually use it for anything beyond that. And that's really interesting because it's not really embedded in their workflows in the powerful way that you would think that they would want to be, right? And they
That's
have
what's
it in their
missing.
business, but it's not really embedded.
Yeah, and that's what's missing. And like this is I don't know if we want to go this route right now, but like this is kind of the issue I think with how AI is being adopted within our space, and it's because one, there's no training, things haven't necessarily gone through compliance checks, people are just kind of like tinkering. I will say that when I talk to advisors, any mention of AI is almost always includes ChatGPT and not any of the other AI platforms
Right.
or providers. They're almost exclusively using ChatGPT, or at least that's what they reference, like Xerox. So maybe they mean they use other tools, but they just say ChatGPT. I'm not sure. But I almost 100% hear ChatGPT. And you're right that it's mostly like, I don't know, a step up from Google searches. A small handful are using it in more advanced ways, whether they've either built templates and they've put in some project knowledge and some context and they're making better use of it. There is some of that, but very few are plugging it into their applications, giving it access to their data, doing that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I'm
which is
definitely not hitting
interesting
it.
because I think it could be that once Google gets their act together, that'll switch right back over to Google. Right? If they're really just using it to navigate, why not just type that into the address bar of the browser and keep doing what you're
Well,
doing? There's no need to change.
speaking of which, did you hear about Perplexity's offer?
Yeah, offering to buy Chrome. It's a big deal.
34.5 billion
Yeah,
to
so it's
get
actually
Chrome.
more than they're worth, right? This is probably the first time a founder has like bid for something more than they're worth. The scuttlebug is the investment bankers know nothing about this deal. It's clearly just like a big PR move. I would say the CEO of Perplexity, Arvind, is just the master of these PR moves, just like
Yeah.
the long shot bets and just getting out into the headlines. I mean, if you launch your own browser and you want to get people to think of you as a browser company, the best way is to actually, put
Yeah.
the word out. You want to buy the biggest browser. I think Chrome has like 60% market share at this point. Maybe Edge is the only other one with any meaningful market share.
Yeah.
And I also think it's interesting that they claim they would leave Google in as the default search provider if they bought it. I just imagine Sundar having to like write a note to the board saying he's like had to consider this offer and decided to go against it. This is like regulatory obligation. It's just amazing to think about that. I think I mean that actually the other part of OpenAI. I'm sure they're going to come out with a browser. They have gone further and raised more capital than any other startup in history, more or less.
Yeah.
And I use the startup term to specifically mean a private company. there are all these SPVs here in the Valley, people getting in on OpenAI shares. There are SPVs on top of SPVs. A lot of advisors are making a ridiculous amount of money hooking these up. I'm sure some of our listeners do some of this stuff. Obviously the employees want liquidity, so there's also a secondary market for OpenAI shares. And then, of course, SoftBank is in there, allowing them to build these massive data centers. And so they have been able to do things no other startup has been able to do. And one thing they've been able to do is include massively increased memory within ChatGPT5. So now I think there's 256,000 tokens of memory, which is, the whole idea is you can have your life story so that you're wedded to ChatGPT. You're not going to move on to another model. And I think that's actually the secret sauce with these companies to keep you wedded in. But I do still think of it as a consumer tool. And like your point about what are people actually going to use for work? I don't think we've even started really using these for work in a proper way. And I think actually Claude and Anthropic has a much bigger business when it comes to work. And then the question is like, when do you use it too much for work, right? So I think Seth from Baupost posted something recently where he said he really prefers using it as an intern, and he's really concerned about not using it as an intern. But then you listen to Sam Altman, he says these are PhD level people. And so then the question is, is there a point at which ChatGPT or the AI system knows far more than you do? And is that a scary thing or is that a good thing?
So I mean, before the intern comment I want to address.
Yeah.
I think the intern comment makes sense when you're using it to describe to someone who's new to AI how they should leverage it, because it's the concept of a capable individual, but they lack context, right? They don't have the real world application. And so the intern analogy is really just about saying, oh, you have this intern, but they haven't worked in your field before, so you have to give them all this context before they can be useful in doing research or writing a paper or doing that sort of thing. It's not to say that and I'm not taking anything away from someone who's at an intern level, but it's not to say they're intern in terms of like capabilities. So I think the PhD level is more appropriate as saying like, this is the quality of content or the ability that our AI tools have at this point. The intern's really just sort of a intro analogy to help you understand how to use it and interact with it.
Yeah, I think it is, but I think it actually makes people comfortable that the AI is junior to them, right? But I actually think that is a bit of a ruse, right? So just for context, here's the text from Seth Klarman, famous investor from Baupost Group, was on the Columbia Business School's Value Investing with Legends podcast, and he said, quote, we have ourselves started using it being AI, as essentially a capable assistant, a summer intern, not somebody who knows which stocks to buy, but a way to tabulate data quicker. We asked AI to take a look at 10 years of annual reports for a company and compare what changed in the annual report from year to year, the way they communicate, which may reveal something about the change in the business or what the lawyer was worried about or whatever it might be. We would run that to an intern, but an AI did it in like 5 minutes, saved 3 days worth of work. So this is really busy work, right? And I think this is really where I see a gap between the narrative within sort of the financial advisory community and the narrative I see here in Silicon Valley. I think here in Silicon Valley, for the most part, people are quite optimistic that the AI capabilities are going to be exponentially growing year on year, and that they're already quite good. And it just takes good prompting to extract the right stuff out of it. But it actually is quite intelligent. We should think about it as a PhD. And I think that's where Sam Altman's coming from. He says, like, look, this thing won the math Olympiad. It is a PhD. You just need to prompt it, right? Whereas I think in some other conversations, I'm hearing like, hey, these things are stochastic parrots. They just do analysis. They don't do judgment. And I actually wonder if that is the right way to think about it. Because, I mean, ultimately, a lot of people here there's sort of, there were AI doomers who said, that this is, AI is going to, autonomously, do everything for us in the future, and we're not going to have a role in the world. That was one level of AI doomer narrative that was out there. I think there's another AI doomer right now, which is that people will actually become so reliant on AI for their work, they will stop thinking about how to do their work. And but you might not realize that you're not thinking about it. And I actually wonder if that's really what's going on, is like this concern that we don't have a role here.
I mean, I think that's definitely what's going on, but I mean, don't get me wrong. I think this is a unique point in human history, uh, but at the same time, we've gone through things like this before. The horse to the automobile, the computer, internet. There's been a host of things, and you could go back much farther than that, where skill sets, things that were highly valued, were no longer needed. New skill sets had to be developed in order to understand how to use it, and it's just continued to further our abilities, right? So, and there's certain core things that have just never really disappeared, like mathematics, right? Like for the everyday person, we're probably not as good. I know I'm not as good at doing just some basic arithmetic in my head the way I was probably when I was in college, because I just don't have a need to do it. I do everything in an Excel or a calculator, or AI does it for me, etc. But there's still a real need for certain applications, certain industries to really have deep mathematical ability, right? That's still a really valuable thing to know at a core level. There's still real value in knowing core engineering and understanding core engineering processes, whether I'm talking about software engineering or I'm talking about actually, construction and building and that sort of engineering. There's a need to have that deep understanding and still have that level of detail, but it doesn't mean there aren't tools that can do most of the calculations for you, already allow you to, really be more efficient with your time, but still don't mean that you get to ignore the underlying concepts, right, that are real core to that industry or to that profession.
But then what about AI actually making judgments? I mean, it's ironic he's talking about Seth. Seth is talking about not deciding what to buy and sell because, we have hedge funds using AI all the time to decide what to buy and sell, right? So AI is
They
making.
are making judgments,
Yeah,
though.
they
It's
are
just
making
is
judgments. So,
it's just the definition of a judgment, right? Like, is it some sort of mathematical analysis, and then they've been told how to make that judgment, and so they make a call.
right,
But it's a judgment. I mean, it may not be a judgment the way somebody people watching judges someone else,
right,
but it's a judgment of some kind.
yeah.
Uh, it's an answer.
It's an answer. Yeah, the question is whether it's the right answer, right? And I think maybe the thought experiment is if there was a AI financial advisor that could speak for hours with someone about their finances and make recommendations based on access to a lot of data, how would they do versus an in-person financial advisor? This is maybe the fundamental question, right?
Yeah.
And that's a pretty deep question. And I think maybe an analog is there was a study last year. I believe Columbia did this study where they actually gave symptoms to a set of doctors and then gave symptoms to some AI, and then they gave symptoms to another set of doctors who could use AI. Now, guess which one actually got the diagnosis correct off the symptoms? These were
Doctors
typically
with AI is my guess.
no, actually, the pure AI got it. Was better than everyone. So,
Then we're doomed.
yeah, so actually the doctors with AI, they would actually second guess the AI because they thought they knew better, right? And
Maybe
it's
we should try it with a
obviously
different profession. Maybe less ego. No offense, doctors.
maybe there's more humility, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. But that actually, reminds me. So Connor Sung, director at eMoney, was quoted recently in financial planning.com. He basically had a quote that was along these lines. My greatest fear is that someone would use eMoney's client portal as a single offering with no person involved. They just send it to everybody, and whatever advice that's getting generated, there's no human that's vetting it. There's no interaction, no engagement. They might list out 5 different recommendations or the AI rule based on 15 to 20 inputs. It gives me a little pause. Is that guidance? Is it advice? Is it that any better than me just going into Google and typing I need help with Roth conversions because I heard it on Instagram? It makes me nervous. By the way, like you could right now type I need help with Roth conversions and the AI mode will
Sure.
probably help you with Roth conversions, right? I don't think
Yeah.
we're that far from that. Yeah. So
I feel like prepping for this, I should have actually tried some of this in Google and then tried some of this in an AI tool and just to see kind of what the guidance is. I kind of want to do that as a test now. But
I mean,
this is
yeah, you should do
what
it.
do you I mean, what do you think of this? I have a strong reaction to this.
Well, I think the first thing I'll say is that these labs are terrified of being sued. And so they defang their models to not provide financial advice. So I think this is one reason why Connor may not have to worry so much because none of the labs want to be sued because someone lost, $3 million because they, followed financial advice from an LLM.
Yeah.
That being said, I think an application could build their own AI. I mean, they might not be worried about it, right? They could find a way uh, to make it actually work for them. But I ultimately think the advisor using AI will have to find the right way to do it. And I think seeing recommendations and then deciding which recommendation to take based on the context is probably the most important thing. I think there's always going to, even with note takers, where we are now digitizing a whole new set of information, there's always going to be information that's not digitized that you have to take into account, right? It could be the, emotional state of your client. I imagine it could be goals you've talked about separately that are maybe not documented anywhere. And so ultimately, you're going to see recommendations, but I think the client is probably expecting you to use your judgment. And I actually think real estate is a great analog here. Even with
Okay.
even with tons of algorithmic recommendations happening, when it comes to a massive financial transaction,
Hmm.
people want a human in the loop, right? They want someone to you can look in the eyes to help you through this transaction.
Yeah.
I feel like it's actually probably similar here.
I think it is. I mean, like, this industry is very relationship heavy, but here's the thing. My reaction to this, and I don't personally know Connor, but I don't see why this is such a fear. Like, to be honest with you, other than alienating his existing clients, it should be the goal of that platform, right? The goal of that platform should be to do as much of this as possible. The reality is, with the right context and the right information, why couldn't it make a well-informed decision? I mean, maybe not today, maybe it's not quite there yet, but at the rate that we're going, the improvements that are being made to the models, the size of the context windows, etc., why not, with the right prompting, the right engineering, couldn't an AI based application be a financial advisor? And I'm not trying to alienate all the financial advisors we want to listen to this,
You heard it here first,
but
James. James thinks that the advisors are dead and
I
all be automated.
I mean, I kind of wonder with a lot of the industries. I think there's things that are important. I think relationships still matter. I think people will still want that sort of like that person maybe plus using AI as a tool, but I don't know why this is a fear, right? It's just a matter of like using it to differentiate yourself. So what's a higher value service that the human can add now if the AI is helping do more and more of the financial planning? I mean, let's deconstruct this, right? Like,
What is the value add then? Let's talk about it.
well, hang on. Let's go back first. I mean, if we go back, let's go back to, I don't know, the early 2000s maybe. We go back to the early 2000s. There wasn't a lot of tech in the way of financial planning. There wasn't a lot of tech in the way of tax efficient trading. There were models, but it wasn't quite the same the way there is today. A financial advisor was a researcher, a stock picker, a trader. They were doing a host of different things, many of which technology does for them or they outsource today. And the core competency now is really about providing that financial advice and oversight. They may outsource the actual investments to asset management firms. They may use a TAMP. There's a host of different solutions where you're not at all doing the trading and the active day-to-day management whatsoever. So you're helping with some sort of risk profile, you're helping choose some sort of allocation strategy, but realistically, you've removed yourself from a lot of the functions that 20 or 25 years ago would have been core to that job. That entire profession has evolved. So now as technology continues to do more of it, as more service providers continue to offer more things, as different firms offer outsourced power planners and different things, the advisor can focus on more relationships. The advisor can focus on growing their practice. There's other things they can do. So I don't have a crystal ball and necessarily know like what the higher level value is. It might be something we could talk through, but I think this is just a direction that you can't stop. And it's every profession.
Then our advisors salespeople? Are they just basically working top of the funnel and trying to make people comfortable with talking about money, and then
Maybe, but I mean,
done algorithmically? Is that the way to think about it?
maybe, but I mean, here's the thing. If I were an advisor today,
Mm-hmm.
AI aside, I want to use technology to be as efficient as possible. And I want to make sure that I am, at the end of the day, communicating with my clients, doing the right prospecting or lead generation or sales efforts to grow my practice, right? And I want to focus on those high value things. I don't think I should be spending a lot of time looking at different investments and trying to figure out how to get the highest alpha, because that's not what really is going to grow your business. That's not what really satisfies your clients. The deep relationship is what's going to keep your clients and get you clients, that personal aspect. And so you could really focus on being very personable and building a very systematized, whether that's using AI, technology, people, doesn't matter, business that really runs like a finely greased wheel, right? And your job and the job of other advisors is really to communicate things with your customers, to find new customers, and to manage that, right? And to run the business itself.
So that's
but isn't necessarily in the financial plan
yeah,
or that advice.
the ratio. I mean, at that point, we should talk about fees then, right? Because at that point, the ratio of clients to advisors is probably much higher. You're going to have more clients to advisors, and I think people might expect to be paying, 0.5%, less than 0.5% in fees if, there really are ultimate.
And the reality is, if you can get that scale, why shouldn't the fees come down?
Right. Well, that's a big change. That's gonna be a big change for a lot of people. And then the average right now is what 120 clients per advisor is the average. Could that really go to 240? Is that really feasible to provide that service to 240 people?
Well, I mean, I guess this is the thing. You got to break down how the advisor is spending their time. How much time does it take to support, let's just call it 200 customers and have a strong relationship with them, right? Because don't get me wrong, I know you can send out AI generated emails and things like that, but that's not what I think is the best use. I think AI's best use might be to help you create some of those as drafts, but I think AI's best use is to do all the other work. I think the advisor should really be focused on the relationship. So if that means meeting with your clients more regularly, being there in moments that matter, right? Like whether it's talking with a child and helping that child with some financial advice and getting them in that right mindset and building the relationship with one of your client's children so that they become a client of yours, whether it's supporting them in advance and helping them prep for what is potentially something that could be tragic and painful in their life, like the death of a family member and asset transfer and things like that. I think helping them plan for these future events and being there for them when they happen is probably what makes a really good advisor in the future, and frankly does today. And so does that mean 50 clients, 100 clients, or 200 clients? I don't know. And I think that varies by advisor and how high touch they want to be. But I think the ability to support more clients based on how you manage your business today is totally possible with the use of AI, better tools, better process, right? It's just a matter of what do you want your practice to look like?
Yeah, do you think that holds for the younger generation too? You think that's what the younger generation will want out of their?
I have no idea.
Their advisor?
I no longer fit into the younger generation, despite my mentally thinking I do.
Yeah, well,
so I don't know what a 20-something or 30-something thinks.
I think the average
or younger.
Yeah, I think really younger generation is maybe our age, to be honest, at this point, right? Like I think a lot of the existing AUM and client base are the older generation, and there will be a great wealth transfer from the boomers down to Gen X and Gen Y and millennials. And I think the question is, what are those people going to want from their advisors? And it might be significantly different from the existing client base. I think that might actually be very, very different. And that might be the thing that no one really talks about because it's actually a little bit hard to talk about how that might work. So yeah, we will see. We will see how that goes. So I think we're at about 30 minutes, and we said we did not want to go too much over 30 minutes.
Yeah.
There's no way people want to listen to us for longer than 30 minutes.
That's unfortunate because I can talk for way longer than 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's been awesome to dig into this. I will actually just recap. If you want to reach out to us, at Mark Heynen on X or Twitter, and Mark Heynen on LinkedIn. How can people reach out to you, James, if they want to be interviewed, or if they have ideas, or if they have feedback on our podcasting style?
Certainly DM me on LinkedIn, James Cantwell. You'll see me associated with WealthTechSelect. You can also go to WealthTechSelect.com, schedule a meeting with me right there, send a message. So that's how you get a hold of me.
Very good. So thank you very much for listening, and we will hopefully be back next week with more and with a mystery guest. All right.
This was fun, Mark.
It's awesome.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Until next time.